Hello, and welcome to our show, Midwest Weekly, starring myself, Hairwick, and my co host, Clt. We are here to give you a recap of our Wildcard rounds action across the Midwest Sweat League Winter Split, as well as our predictions of the upcoming matches in the quarterfinals. But first, we will lead off with our first series, that being a really fun series between Team Ghost and Peanut Butter and Jelly. But before I really get into it, CLT, how are you feeling today, man? I usually ask you that first, and I don't wanna throw that off.
I'm pretty good, man. I mean, it's not as cold here this week. Work has actually been, knock on wood, somewhat gentle to me. So we vibing, man. We all right this week.
Very good, very good. Well, I'm glad you're feeling good. I know I'm feeling good. We had a fun weekend, right? So we'll kick it off here. And I know on Saturday we were both casting a series each at the literally exact same time, which is great. Like, of course it was. But nonetheless, this is the first series. Team Ghost, Peanut Butter and Jelly. We already talked about the circumstances on the predictions episode, so I don't really have to go into any more detail. I hope, seeing you guys should have watched that by now, at what occurred and why PB&J was filling in. With that being said, here we go. Game one. This one was a um, very intense, long game. So when I remember going into the draft and I was seeing these comps kind of unfold, the big thing I noted was if PB&J's comp can get past that 30-minute mark, I think they have a really good shot at winning this game. Um, but it's going to be on Team Ghost to just like see if they can skyrocket and take it over. Team Ghost did that in the early part of this game, and I should start showing that off, shouldn't I? In the early part of this game, I remember they did get the first blood, which was one of the more interestingly random first bloods. And if you want to pull it up, CLT, it happens literally at the start of the game. So basically, what happens is there's an invade top side. Havoc is um, going to check the top there to kind of see, but he's just kind of going by himself. So it's not really a full invade. Maybe he just wants to get some vision down, and he runs into gameplay, and they just start duking it out, or just already fisticuffing at the start of the game. And so then both junglers start to collapse. Darkhound gets there first because Havoc is in blue side jungle, but Mr. Scuttle Crab, being the hero he is, comes in and saves the play off the back of a beautiful haymaker by Havoc that did so much of game praise HP bar. I mean, it was like a full haymaker to the face. Um, and that was the first blood. So that's how the game kicked off. And then we ended up on this 20,000 year pause. It was like, I think it was like 10 minutes. Um, so we were just kind of chilling, thinking about how the game was going to go. And then from there, it was just kind of the Ghost show for a bit. Ghost, they did get a decent lead, able to control the mid game pretty well. There was a nice triple kill in the bot lane by Ziri, which was Geico, of course. Don't confuse it. I know they have the same name, Sigma Sigma Boy, but Havoc is top and Geico is the AD carry. Uh, so it was really like Ghost favored, and so I thought like, okay, this game might just kind of, I don't want to say over, but I'm like, okay, this game just might be done for. I'm gonna be honest. This is kind of my mindset. Like, yeah, this game might be just kind of screwed. But in the mid lane, we were kind of seeing something happen, and that was that Kiepo or Kipu, he goes by Kipu. I always call him Kiepo. Was really having a nice performance there in the mid lane, really controlling Mage well, and just kind of dominating the lane a bit. And so he was kind of the saving grace in this game. So even though things were kind of falling apart early, he kept growing his lead slowly and slowly, whether it was a solo kill, a nice little team fight pickup on a kill, um, whatever it was. And so the games just kind of started to draw out, and then the quirky started to scale. The tanks were getting huge, and you had the Ornn items were starting to come in. And by the way, this wasn't Ornn support. It was very surprising pick here by Chewy, but he played it pretty well besides the early game. Um, and then we got to the end of the game, which I don't think anyone could have saw coming. I talked about in predictions. I said, hey, if PB&J cleans up their macro, I think they have a really good shot to, win this game or win this series. I mean, and at first the macro wasn't looking great. It was looking like their old macro during the regular season. So I was like, okay, this is gonna be really tough for them. And they do it again. They make a weird macro decision. I respect the attempt, but they needed a lot of things to work out in their favor in the situation. They ended up going straight down mid. They're like, hey, let's just run it in. Let's go for the end here, and it ended up being a base race, but they didn't have an inhibitor down. Well, they had an inhibitor down, so they had to get through all these super minions while they were pushing mid lane, and I think that was the biggest thing that slowed down the play. And in the end, Ghost was able to secure themselves a victory and win through a crazy base race. So it was a really really fun game one though, and everybody kind of like had highlight moments. Strawberry definitely got some really disgusting picks, and he was filling in as Ocean was out. He found some really nice plays here on the Rel, one of his best champions, so not surprised. Um, Again, Kiepo was playing really, really well, but even like Darkhound found so many great angles on the Skarner. I was just surprised that these three picks were allowed. Actually, four. I'm gonna go four. Ghost let them get Kasante, Skarner, Syndra, and Corki, who have all been very strong champions, and a mega scaling comp when you add the Ornn. I was like, what is happening? So, in reality, in any perfect world, if it's played like it's correctly by PB&J, there's no way they ever lose this game. But we're not perfect. We're humans. They're humans. They make a bad decision, and that's what you get. So, have you had a chance to kind of review any of a little bit of this game one? Maybe take a peek at a CLT.
I was skimming through it. I thought it was quite interesting as I got to the mid game that PB&J did a really good job with their dragon controls here. I see they ended up getting Soul and um, being able to use that to their advantage. I mean, three Chemtech Drakes is quite a bit of ability haste, which Syndra doesn't mind, and attack speed and haste, which Corki enjoys as well.
Yeah,
So
the Hestech Drakes were definitely nice. Helped a lot. Um, I should note that too throughout the series. There was a lot of heavy focus from Ghost onto the Grubs, while PB&J was focusing heavily on Drakes almost the entire series. It was kind of the thematic play style of both these teams throughout. That could be a little bit to do to maybe trying to focus top side on Ghost side, but which was really weird though because Kaiko again was popping off. I mean, he was having himself an extremely good game one before it kind of started to fall apart a bit there for him. I mean, the Skarner was just pick after pick on the Zeri, kept finding him. Uh, but yeah, I mean that was definitely a big focus from PB&J was those Drakes.
yeah, I'm kind of looking at this base race right now. It's an interesting decision. I don't know uh, where exactly they like came up with the call, or if they felt like they couldn't 5v5, so they seen a window and wanted to try and go for it.
So when I was talking to them in the interview, they definitely did feel like they could 5v5. That wasn't the problem. They just saw an angle and they thought they could pull it off. Um, and there's a world where it could have worked. Our friend Zero Style, who came in and casted the series with me, kind of brought that up. Like, man, if the Syndra E just lands onto the Zeri and the Zeri dies, then it might actually work. But of course, didn't happen that way. Zeri lived, and that was all she wrote. But it was pretty crazy, and obviously, I know Havoc was there doing his best to kind of stop the ongoing push, the horde of PB&J that was entering the base. But it was a 4v2 push compared to a 3v1 push. So I don't know if that maybe had something to do with it too. Um, yeah, I'm not really entirely sure. I guess there could have also been a world where maybe uh, Game Prey and Syndra are there together. So like maybe Game Prey just resets immediately, and they say, "Hey, you guys can 3v1, right?" And they're like, "Yeah, sure. Let's do it this way." Maybe that's the call, and that works. I'm not sure, but it didn't work out in their favor. So they definitely tried it.
Yeah. And actually looking at the comps now that I'm diving into this a little bit more, this is probably one of the few spots where I like Set uh in general because he's going forward, but there's not really many options on the Cal Poly side to like threaten the backline, especially at least lock down the backline like Zeri.
Yeah.
So Set I think was a really really solid pick here. I know Havoc has that in his back pocket and plays it quite a bit. So uh, Yeah, this was an interesting game and lots of fighting.
Yeah, no, it was definitely pretty bloody. I mean, all these games pretty much were just have different points, and this one was
Yeah.
kind of bloody early, and then like the mid game fights just really popped off. Like it wasn't super bloody early, but that mid game went crazy. It was really fun to watch. Very exciting game there. Um, but yeah, and I remember looking back, and honestly, like when I looked at the drafts, I didn't even go like, oh man, like this was a draft diff from really either side. So I was like, what do you do in draft to really change it up besides maybe get rid of Skarner if you're red side? And I kind of said maybe consider the Syndra ban too. Those were like the two things I took away from it for Ghost, just to secure them a series victory. From the side though of blue side, I was like, there's no champion to me that was really an issue in that game. It was just decision making.
Mm,
I honestly, I know I would if you watch the full game, it definitely feels like they were fine because they had the perfect scaling comp there. Um, Obviously, knowing that they're not going to get that perfect scaling comp again, maybe then you consider some bans. But I mean, that's up to preference at that point too, because I don't know. I know the Zeri got a triple kill, but that was also just like decision making to me. I don't think that should be looked at as like champ diff. Zeri's not really a strong champion early, so not before an
I'm
item.
just I guess the only curiosity thing, and we don't have to dig like too super deep into this one, but
Hmm.
is if they felt like Ornn was going to be a flex pick, then if they're worried about Havoc pulling something out like Set, and I mean Trundle Aatrox, I mean there was holy hell, there was a boatload of top lane bans if you consider like Volibear Tom Kenshin to that kind of pool as well.
Yeah,
Um, I was just wondering if there was a world where it could have been Ornn top and maybe some other type of disruptor, or maybe like a utility support to try and prevent them from like having too much hard engage. But I mean, it's always hindsight's 2020 here. Casante's probably one of the few tanks that can brawl with fighters if you play it correctly, and
yeah,
Ornn support. I think they got past what's his weaker part of the game here. I mean, he got to upgrade quite a few items, so they definitely got value out of that. Um, yeah, yeah, he got, at least got two upgrades out, upgraded the carries. So, yeah, not overall not too terrible. And he actually got like he stacked a boatload of armor too. Holy shit.
yeah. He definitely didn't play it bad. I will
Yeah.
note that the B4 B5 picks from Peanut Butter and Jelly were literally the Orna Casante.
Yeah.
So like if you're like you obviously know now that one of these has to go in some a different spot than top lane, but the fact is whatever Havoc picks, whatever he picks, they could decide to go and swap it honestly. Like I know it sounds funny, but Casante support can work. It's probably not the best, and I think Ornn's better down there considering Ornn's kit, but it could still work. I mean, you could have done it if you want to do some cheesy stuff. Plus, you have a cancel on Rel as well if you use the W properly as the Casante. So, I mean, there was definitely a lot of decisions and choices that PB&J
Hmm.
left themselves with that B4 by 5 pick.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was game one, and it was a crazy game one. But yeah, so getting here into game two, this one was still another like absolute banger. But when you consider like how the game was going, it was really surprising that Ghost kept the game alive as long as they did. It was almost another 40-minute game. Um, when looking at these drafts, I remember like seeing some changes, and the one thing I kind of go, and I actually mentioned it, but I was like, I kind of think they shouldn't have left the Syndra up, and they shouldn't have hand shook this matchup again in the mid lane, considering how it went. Um, and they had an option to ban it, and they just chose not to. Um, and I was kind of shook by that. Other than that, from Ghost side, I think that the comp they've set up is decent. I mean, you have Oriana plus a Mumu ball delivery system. My only issue is this Ezreal. I don't think Geico on Ezreal here was the pick. I don't see it. I don't really feel the angle there. Um, he did do damage. That wasn't the problem. But like it's always poke damage, right? It's generally not too much consistent damage from the Ezreal unless like you're just like the most masterful Ezreal player in the world. And so yeah, it didn't feel right. Um, and then Havoc had man, Havoc had a good series, but this game right here, bro, was his opportunity to like absolutely just shit on them 1v9 type thing mode, and it was just so hard for the Renekton to do that. He was like 7-0 at one point, I think, maybe 7-1. I don't know. He was just popping off, and this Aatrox did not have fun like at all. Um, it was one of those games where I was a little worried for PB&J because I was like, this game, it could potentially be over already, um, because the first gank, or was it even a gank? I can't remember. No, I don't think it was. I think it was just a solo kill top lane. Um, but it was definitely the Aatrox getting first blood. I mean, not Aatrox, Renekton. Into the Aatrox. So no, it was a gank. I'm watching it back. I can't remember because I had to check. So yeah, it was literally the first gank. It was really well set up here by Havoc. It's just a nice bandage toss. I'm pretty sure there was no flash already on the Aatrox because of the trading done in the early game or early lane phase by the Renekton, and it was just like the Renekton show from there. But then again, while Renekton was popping off, the Syndra was popping off again. So I was like, okay. So now they have their win con. They have something they can play off of again here for PB&J. They have decent scaling again. Let's see what they can do. I thought Chewy on the Maokai was a pretty good pick. He caught a really nice twisted advance on the Geico in the um, trade there. Was able to get a kill, and Darkhound kind of just showed up and said hello, and then that's kind of where like it flipped. So you had one side of the map doing really well for Ghost, and then one side of the map doing really well for PB&J, but then Neutralizer was the mid lane, where the Syndra was the breaking point for it. It's like, okay, we have now two spots doing well instead of just 1-1. Um, and then PB&J slowly but surely again started getting their advantages, getting their lead. Um, and once it ballooned up here in like around I want to say like close to the 20-minute mark, it just kind of felt inevitable that PB&J would eventually just win this game and push it to game 3.
Yeah, yeah. Walking back through this game, Havoc definitely felt the need to put his carry pants on, and even looking at his build, I mean, Trinity Force, Ghostblade into Sherelda's, like he's wanting to one shot whoever he touches. But I just think it's really hard for him to pull the trigger and get deep into the backline when you got stuff like Wukong and Maokai, Twisted Advance to like lock down. But yeah, this Syndra got rolling. I am surprised that they let Keppo get this Syndra again. This is definitely one of the champions he's performed quite a bit on and consistently performed on it throughout the split. I've noted before that we had the chance to scrim against PB&J middle of the season, and yeah, that game one, if I remember correctly, his Syndra was dirty. I did not have fun. He knows the limits of that champion and plays it really well.
Yeah, it's definitely ban worthy for sure.
He
So
reminds me a lot of like we'll kind of touch on it when we get to that series, but like Gojo for Cal Poly, where it's like it might not be the deepest champion pool, or at least hasn't showcased the deepest champion pool, but what he plays like so well, knows all the matchups, knows exactly how to tech into them and survive them, and ultimately like he's always there in the mid to late game of putting out just consistent damage. His Victor's the same way.
yeah, I forgot to know when I was talking about the 20-minute mark. The reason why I was feeling confident about PB&J, it's not just specifically the gold lead. It was how they were playing the game at this point. I remember I talked a lot about Otacon and how I think sometimes Otacon is a bait. And this was something to note about game 1. The Otacon wasn't taken until 30 minutes in the game, by the way. I should have
Hmm.
noted that, and I forgot about it. So here in game 2, Otacon got taken a little earlier, and it was the GA buff one, right? So what did PB&J do? They basically did nothing. They basically said, "Screw it. You guys can take whatever you want as long as we don't like do something really really dumb right now. We're fine because this buff is gonna fall off, and we feel confident about this game and where we're at. Because they had the 3 Drakes, they had the setup, they had what they needed to win this game, right? So that was just something about PB&J, the patience, the understanding of this current meta and how things are. Um, The restraint from both teams, honestly, at different points was really really excellent. That's why I thought the series was great. I don't think Ghost was just severely outclassed or anything. I just think it was a good series, and PB&J showed up and showed out. Um, and the game two was another example of how these teams are really playing a really good chess match, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm kind of watching them. I'm at about the 26-minute mark where they ended up getting Soul, and just taking a snapshot of some of the items and stuff. I'm actually surprised with Syndra getting accelerated in like the early to mid game that there wasn't a few more like MR options
Hmm.
coming out of Ghost, knowing that they have a little bit of a lead. I mean, they still have a gold lead actually when PB&J got Soul, but they're trying to try to do something to stop the bleeding and stop the snowballing. Because yeah, Syndra after that fight gets the death cap, and then she never ever looks back.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is here is like again, Darkhound to me like played. Oh my god, I forgot about this so funny play. Ezreal eat over the wall during that around that 26-minute mark, and then got blast going back over the wall and was forced to flash because Mage autoed the cone.
Rip. It's happened to all of us.
But yeah, I mean, Darkhound was playing really, really well. Not just in the series, but in this game. I mean, he was just being disruptor. Like he didn't have the crazy scoreline of the Wukong or anything. He just knew like as long as I set up my team, as long as I set up Jello, as long as I set up Kipu to do their damage, we're gonna win this game. I mean, it was just beautiful to watch, and like I said, it was great back and forth. I'm trying to remember how this one ended because I remember the back door, but I just don't remember how this one went. Okay, so yeah, that's right. So they got triple inhibbed. That was one thing. When you're getting triple inhibbed, you know it's hard to win the game at that point. Um, and then I think after that was just basically um, just a couple picks, and then it was the game. You know, kill a couple people, and then you just walk it down and can end it. But yeah, they had everything they needed to end it. They didn't even end it with a big goal lead either. It was only about like a couple K around the time was the game was ending. So but yeah, good game two from PB&J. They're able to pick up the victory and get themselves to a game three, where I think game three, um, it wasn't underwhelming by any means, but it was definitely one of those that was like Ghost lost all their momentum of the first two games where they're kind of playing okay in the early games, and though Geico was again doing decently well in the Callista, he was getting caught out too many times, making too many weird plays, and Mage had a horrible game on this Diana pick. I'm not really sure what the angle was, but it did seem a bit strange. And then to note, once again, we did see Wukong, and up to this point, Wukong was undefeated in the series. This was his only loss. And I think the Volibear was a good adaptation because I think Volibear is really, really good in the Wukong. He's not great in the jungle right now, but Darkhound played very, very well in this Volibear and kind of just took over the game by just ganking Diana over and over and over again. And it just kind of felt like, all right, this game is starting to feel doomed for Ghost because Havoc's not on the carry champion. It's Cassante. This Wukong, even though he's kind of fed, I don't think he can carry the game. And then Geico's playing Callista, who we all know is going to fall off as the game progresses. So it was just kind of hard. And then you had this splitting Yorick, who was just being annoying. Even if like Cassante wanted to play the game, it's like you really can't because honestly, like that's a counter, right? Like Yorick's good in the Cassante, so good luck. So no matter how fed Havoc would get, he'd never be able to outduel the Yorick in the later parts of the game. Early game, it's fine, right? Early game is fine. You can sustain through the early game. But once that's done, once you get into the mid game, it becomes impossible to play into the Yorick. So it was pretty sad to watch on that front. To see Ghost go out like this, but at the same point, um, as I stated last week, we're gonna find out about teams, right? I talked about it in power rankings, and we found out, if they were meant to be here, if they were meant to win, they would have won, and they'd be moving on. But they lost to a team that was already out of the playoffs technically originally. So to me, at this point, you didn't deserve to be here in the first place. So, congratulations again to PB&J and the victory. It's an absolutely crazy one. But yeah, game three was definitely pretty hectic. Um, I don't know.
I I did catch a majority of game three when I was talking to the winners of my series, and we actually like stayed in chat and watched some of this game. Yeah, the I think the question that needs answered is this Diana pick. I don't know if it's a comfort thing for Mage or if it's just a like an old reliable like main type of pick. I'm not 100% sure. I wish I could go back and see where it was picked in the draft. It looked like the draft got a little buggy there. Um,
Yeah, it was. I am trying
in
to
the middle.
remember. I think Diana was maybe third or fourth pick, I want to say.
Yeah, I just if Diana was anywhere in the fourth, fifth pick range, I don't know if you're wanting to like dive headfirst into Ari, Volibear, Rel, and then even Corky has ways of just outranging you and escapes with him eating away. So I'm very curious. It's not a champ I see often, so I don't know what state she's in. I would assume it would not be the strongest state because Diana, when she's really strong, seems to one-shot everything on the map and probably should be played more. Also, kind of one thing that was pointed out when I was again kind of watching this game three was Darkhound's build was very movement speed oriented.
Yeah,
Yeah, he went the Cosmic Drive into I believe it was Iceborne. Yeah, so his goal was to get on top of Geico and just absolutely lock him down. So I think PB&J played to their draft strengths quite well. Even though this York got behind, like you said, he was going to be super annoying, and even behind, threatened a couple solo kills in the Havoc. Yeah, it unlike the first two games where Havoc had a champion to put his carry pants on, this game you could kind of do it on Cassante, but it's just not as ideal as something say like a Renekton or a Set.
yeah, no, for sure. Um, I think the biggest theme of this game, and not to any way target Mage, but more to talk about the just kind of the situation, was that PB&J were always coordinated around their fights, and the couple times that they needed that coordination, they weren't there, and part of that was Mage side laning, maybe TPing late, maybe just not being aware of the situation and still just focusing on the side lane. I don't know what the calls were in game, but it just felt like there was a little off sync there. And that theme ended the way it kind of was going throughout the game, where he was getting caught, and then at the end, instead of him getting caught, it was just him not being there. His team dies, and the game's over. So, which was a good catch and a good team fight by PB&J. Don't get me wrong, but it was a 5v4 scenario where imagine if Diana's there, right? Even if the Diana is just like super behind, she had a really nice moonfalls, really nice engages. I think that's what her ult's called, right? Lunar moonfall or something like that. Um, but yeah,
Yeah, I believe so.
some really nice engages off of like the Wukong engage. So they coupled it well. Even if the Diana was just do some damage and then die bot, it still was like okay, it can still change the course of a fight. So um, it definitely did not go in Ghost's favor at that point, and I can kind of gonna go back and watch this last team fight because it was pretty crazy. It was around the blue side, top specifically Ghost blue side. Like, on it, but I'm trying to get to it. Um, but yeah, so that was pretty much my take from what I saw. Um, no soul in this game. It was tied 2-2 in Drake's. That was something Ghost made sure is not to give them any win cons there, which was nice. But yeah, we started with a catch here. Darkhound gets a really nice engage here onto Geico. Geico forced then to kind of kite back a bit, and the fight's looking okay for a second. And I'm like, again, if Mage is just there, I'm like, oh my god, this fight actually goes their way. Um, but ends up being extended a bit, probably longer than they would have wanted, and then that was over. It was just done because there was definitely some blinking health bars on the side of PB&J for a second there. And that burst damage could have been all they needed to clean up a couple kills and then turn the fight.
Well, I mean, looking back at this fight here at about 30 minutes, which
Yeah,
I think is the
that's the
game
game ending.
deciding fight.
Yep, that's what I'm
Yeah,
referring to.
I mean, they're posturing like they're want to fight, and Wukong actually gets off of a really god tier ult uh across all five members here. So I don't know what, like I said, what the comms were like, but I think if you know that Diana doesn't have TP and it's in the back of your head, somebody's got to be saying, "Hey, no, we can fight here," and maybe Mage is saying, "No, wait for my TP," uh, because like you said, Diana turns this fight. Wukong gets a four-man ult at one point, and I imagine if Diana's in there, especially with completed Storm Surge, and
Yep.
even off of the back, if she buys just the Sork boots upgrade, the tier fours, just to get a touch of extra damage, like it can definitely turn that fight because no one, not even Darkhound, has any bit of MR. I know Chewie has the locket, so that does kind of help mitigate Diana ult, but you get that 3-4 man Diana ult post Storm Surge against no MR teams, you do tend to blow somebody's dying. So I don't. It was an interesting fight looking back at it, but yeah, it definitely seemed like Team Ghost just definitely didn't have it today.
Yeah. And PB&J, they came in and they were prepared and more prepared than probably anyone had thought, and they got the upset. So good for them. With that being said, I mean, we spent a lot of time on that series, so I think it's good to move on. We can jump into the Scorch versus Insane Banana Pasta series, which was, um, I know, a pretty fun series from what I saw a little bit of the games. But I will let you kind of talk about game one for us.
Yeah, so game one was a very it was a very well played game for Team Scorch with the lineup change that Insane Banana brought in and Wargo on top lane. It felt like they made it a point here to attack War Initiate and not getting too far ahead of myself. We did see Mel come in by Bananasaur, which we kind of found out later that he had put some reps in on it, but also he's enjoys playing a lot of the artillery mages, so Mel just kind of fits his flavor of champion um quite a bit here. So it it went okay in lane for Ghost Tiger, but getting back to them picking on War Initiate here, he had a rough time. Not only do I think he didn't uh he didn't really set up the lanes properly when it was coming in the Nasus. He was in Ares' face quite a bit here. Ares bringing out this Nasus, which I think that might have been our first Nasus of the split. Uh,
I think it
correct
was,
me.
yeah. I think I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure it was, yeah.
but War played in his face and pressured the lane well, but man, Rusty would not leave this crocodile alone. He ganked him 3, 4, 5 times, and ultimately it allowed Ares to get super far ahead. I think Ares snowballed that type of resource into a solo kill or two, and then it was the Ares and Bananasaur show. Um, yeah, this Mel started to get last hits with her passive and get a lot of gold into her pocket in the mid game, and this just became very one-sided pretty quickly here for the side of Scorch. I mean, at one point here, and about the 16-minute mark, it was like 16 kills to one. So it just they Insane Banana had a comp that forced the other team to walk into them, but I think the other team not only played around it correctly, but got so far ahead that Ares and Rusty can walk through whatever they want. And then when you have like Calico on the Seraphine ult behind the scenes, just extending it, getting really good engages, it was yeah, this got out of hand real quick.
Yeah, I'm surprised that really teams were testing the Skarner much. I don't think we've discovered the way to beat the champion yet in the league. Um, Not at least consistently. Like it does lose, but I mean it's pretty strong. And even when it loses, it still looks good. So I don't think we found the answer here, and I don't think Zyra by any means is the answer. So leaving it up to me seems pretty crazy. Um, as again, I don't know if that's what you look for. Now, in theory, maybe Zyra could work, but quote me if I'm wrong on this. The plants or the root only roots if there's plants, right? Like,
No,
no,
no. The root is just a standalone spell. It does not
okay,
depend on the plants at all.
okay. Well
And
then,
actually, I'm sorry.
maybe
Go ahead.
I would say that maybe then I guess Zyra could be okay in a Skarner because to me, the way you beat Skarner is just being able to cancel his engage, and his engage is what his E, right? And not his
Mhm.
impale. His impale is his follow up. So you then maybe force the Skarner to flash impale. You can react to that. It's pretty slow, the ulti, all things considered. Um, but you can't really dodge the E as frequently as people think you can. Like it's similar to that of a new snowball, where it's like it's faster than you think. It gets you get weird angles off of it. Um, so if you're able to just kind of root him as he's coming at you, I could see it maybe working. But I don't feel like that's guaranteed enough. It's just another skill shot. So I feel like you need something that's more guaranteed. A la maybe something like Milio E. So that's just my take though. I'm not really sure.
I'm gonna kind of play a touch of devil's advocate here. It's not that I don't think like Skarner is like I don't want to say uncounterable because I don't think that's the point you were going for. I think Zyra into Skarner is actually pretty beneficial, and that's one champion that can actually output not only damage into Skarner, but it also locks Skarner down because Skarner's coming into Zyra, and especially if Zyra's already got set up there at the plants, like it's impossible to get out. Um, the the interesting thing, kind of looking at this game, was the Zyra build because while I think Crypt Bloom and Void Staff are great, a lot of these mages that are kind of meta, and I'm use Hui, we can even throw Mel, Zyra in the jungle. They stack Bloodletter's Curse so insanely well because the plants all proc Bloodletters. So you're getting 6 stacks of 30% MR cleave quite quickly.
Hmm.
So I think that that is an angle that could have happened. Um, but ultimately, I think Skarner just got so far ahead, and these MR boots were actually, as much as I crash on the tier 4 boots, I thought the early rush on the tier 4 MR boots to get him the magic shield was pretty correct here. Um, One thing that I was interested with was the Corki build. I've never seen Yuntal on Corki, so I'm not 100% sure if that's something new popping up or where the theory is behind that. I'm not a Corki or an AD player, so I wish I could bounce that off of an AD player there, but it was interesting. And I think all in all, looking at these comps, Insane Banana had a comp that I think scaled really well. Sona is a pretty big monster when she gets to late game, but she's just too slow tempo for the type of game that's being played right now in this meta. And yeah, I it just overall got out of hand real fast for Insane Bananas here. I do in theory like the comp on paper.
Yeah, I also Sona is something we have not seen. This is the first time I've seen Sona. It seems kind of wild to even see it the champion.
Mm.
I do think she might have angles, but I don't know if it's angles like back in the day. This isn't Afro Moose status right now. You know what I mean? Afro Moose Sona or some crazy stuff. I'm not like coming at Threshold anymore. I'm coming at the fact that like I think at that moment picks during that like MSI run of like the Sona, the Sorakas, they just were good at the time, and people just didn't know that. Whereas right now, I don't think particularly Sona herself is a good pick in general, but I also don't know if most of your enchanters are great. There are a few that are good, but I feel like that's based on the fact that they have like kind of versatile enchanter kits. Sona is just like I heal and I click big R. I feel like that's her gameplay, but she's pretty low range for an enchanter as well. So I don't know. Interesting to see though.
Yeah, yeah. The fact that she buffed, she has 2 hyper carries to buff here. Um, like I said, I don't want to take this conversation like way too long, but I feel like if War was on just something much beefier that could utilize the utility that Sona brings, and then being able to stand their ground while Zyra plants you're walking into could have been interesting. But then hindsight on that is you're playing a tank into a Nasus, which
Yeah.
is also a pretty feels bad. So all in all, I liked what Scorch's draft was. I mean, they did first pick Mel, and they got everything that they wanted, match scaling for the most part, but then just got super far ahead. So you'll see shades of where this Zyra comes in if we want to transition to game two. Um,
Yeah, and we can
where
gladly do that right now if you want. No problem with me.
yeah, yeah, we'll transition this into game two because Insane Banana ran a much similar comp where they're just daring the enemy team to run into them. Not overly like as many tools, but you still see the Zyra come out. You see Talia. They ended up taking the Seraphine here, and Urgot is not a champion that you just sign up to run into. So their comp on paper I think was a little better designed. The Ezreal we could kind of argue because I'm not an Ezreal lover. Anytime I see that champion, unless you're playing this game for a living, Ezreal just doesn't output enough consistent damage, and you have to put a lot of time and effort into that champion for it to be effective. Ezreal to me is like the artillery mage. If you're not putting 25, 30 games into Ezreal a week, just don't play it, in my opinion. Now I say that, but Crackler and Threshold Day actually did really well into Boonstra Calico. Calico did get her signature Zillion, and they ended up getting 2v2 kills in the bot lane here early on in this game. Um, I thought Insane Bananas lane swap was really good. Ares, being the absolute madman that he is, brought out his Azir top, and Ghost Tiger had his main, or what I would consider one of his mains, in Talia, which is kind of a soft counter. So the fact that they lane swapped and played around with that quite a bit in this early game, it kept Insane Bananas pace really low. Like it kept the game pace really really slow, but they still matched like lane for lane. They weren't getting out rotated or out bullied here because the lane matchups were so much better.
So
But there's a couple of fights around here where it was rough for Scorch to walk into Flame Dog's Zyra.
yeah, and I should say, like, would you consider this game a much better game than game one? Because the way we are talking about game one, I mean, we kind of saw it as the viewers. I'm showing the score lines and stuff. Yeah, it was a pretty much a any definition of a blowout, right? I mean, that's what game one basically was. Was game
Yeah.
two more on par for what you'd expect out of a playoff matchup?
Oh, 100%. Game two felt like I was watching Insane Bananas from last split. Like this was a team that stood their ground, played their own brand of League of Legends, and still found ways of putting themselves in winning situations. Um, the only thing that honestly stopped them from taking this game was the fact that they got outscaled. Like Scorch knew not to walk into them and basically play the long game, because there was an Otacon fight, I believe, that went back and forth, but Flame Dog Zyra put so many plants down that they just couldn't walk into them. So they played this kind of back and forth game a little bit with Otacon, and they really couldn't move Insane Bananas comp much. But then next thing you know, Azir gets 2, 3 items, Rusty gets a touch of MR, Banana gets tankier, and then Sivir. I mean, we've all seen Sivir just randomly hit a minion, and the next thing you know, the ricochet takes a chunk of your health bar. So yeah, this was a much better showing by Insane Banana, and I'll even go as far to say is if this was game one, then there's a chance that Insane Banana could have done a lot of work in this series
Yeah,
because they did. They gave Scorch everything they could.
I mean, we did talk about it a bit in the predictions where we were just like, the problem here is that this version of Insane Banana Posse is like not new, but it's hasn't been seen um, for a bit, right? And so they had to take some time to build that synergy back up. Obviously, War retransitioning to the top lane also matters a bit. Um, and so they kind of played at a disadvantage. It's really unfortunate that Noob again had his restrictions going to play for the collegiate team. I know that I guess the biggest thing with that is I guess he was not allowed to play in any of their teams right now. Is what I'm hearing. So it's pretty unfortunate. But yeah, I mean, hopefully, they can come back and maybe they bring everybody back into the fold, meaning like Ghost Tiger comes to stay, and we get to see what they look like again next split. But for now, they were not able to pull that out, and they did get the result of a 2-0 against Scorch, who as of right now has their number.
Yeah, yeah. It was game one was pretty unfortunate for them, but I think game two they actually showed their resolve as a team and played this game two really well. It just the scaling advantage for Scorch finally started to kick in.
Was there anything particular like for the viewers to know that maybe had been like game breaking? Because I see the gold lead even here at 15 minutes is pretty close. Was there anything that really kind of like felt like either broke the game as far as the gold lead, broke the game as something else? Um,
Um, Trying to look through to see if there was any big fight. I know War got picked on quite a bit when he tried to side lane against Ares. Once Ares hit Death Cap, he was just like one-shotting everybody. So that part of the scaling like really started to shine for the Scorch team, but it just they kind of just nickeled and dimed this lead until eventually the scaling got into their favor. And then there was a big explosive team fight. I'm trying to get the timestamp for it, but Scorch ends up getting War initiate here in about the 36-minute mark up in the top lane, and then they ended up getting that push down top lane to the turret and the inhib, and then just started to pull insane banana all over the map here. They thought they got Bananasaur after that push, but he Galio ulted out, and like I said, it just started to go south from there. The fact that the scaling team not only held on through quite a bit of this fighting, but got three fire drakes, ended up doing a boatload of work. So
yeah, I'm actually watching. It looks like there's a fight around Baron here. Rusty gets a sick 4-man ult, man. It's just disgusting. I mean, that's what happens when you're sitting on a ward, right? Uh,
yeah,
man, pretty unfortunate. And then even with what looks like a kill on the monkey, it's not because of the Zillion ultimate. So, man, it's
there's a big team fight in the south side of the jungle here in about the 39.5 minute mark,
so right
where
after right after the Baron.
yeah, where it started to look like it was going in Insane Banana's favor, but then Rusty still had the um sorry, Rusty had the not Rusty, Ares. I lost my train of thought there. Calico had a clutch ult on Ares to basically like trade one for one. And once War went down, because he's the solo frontline, they just started to poke out, and you see Ares here at the 40-minute mark, like basically two-shot Ghost Tiger and almost two-shot Thresh all day, and then ends up two-shotting Flame Dog. Like it just became Rusty soldiers just going to work on that final push.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
could I could definitely they were trying. They were definitely trying to make some plays, but just wasn't working out in their favor. But yeah, I mean, looks like a fun series. I mean, again, well played by Scorch to get themselves back into the quarters, and they're on their redemption arc right now, right? We know what happened last split, so they're trying to make that run, get back to the finals, and have a second opportunity at getting their first title as a team. So, um, definitely looking forward to that. I I I made a joke the other day to Dippy specifically and to Scorch their whole team. I said I'm gonna start calling us all the Big Four, and because like who's like been around the longest currently in the league, which you got Small Brain No Mechanics, Team Ghost, Sad Jellyfish, and Scorch of course. And so as of right now, the Big Four is just down to two teams. Can we old heads get a win? We'll see. Or is the new squad just gonna continue to dominate the league? So that'll be kind of fun and interesting to see. But yeah, again, congratulations to Scorch on the victory, and same banana possibly hope to see you back. We love you guys. Come back for a third split, man.
Yeah, yeah. Insane Bananas. Some of the nicest dudes actually out there. Like I said, War has been absolute clutch with catching and casting some series for us, and I know I've played some games with Crackler, but Scorch and Insane Banana are the two teams I talk to the most out of the Group A, and there's standout people. So I'd love to see Insane Banana come back.
100%. And speaking of War casting, we're actually going to get into the series he casted. Again, thank you, War, for not only casting, but thank you for providing us with the VOD so we can post it here to our YouTube. We appreciate that. We are blessed to have you, be a part of the community and be a part of helping us out here once in a while. Because, me and Clt, like we always say, we do it our best to keep up, but, we've had a lot of help this split, which is great. Want to hopefully continue that. I should also shout out again Pugsley and our pies as they have been very impactful, and then Bori and Victor Apple when they can also kind of jump in. Hopefully we
Mhm.
get like a cool little casting team going because I think there's a world where maybe we can build this up here in April. But and that's where we're looking to play next split, hopefully in April. So if anyone's wondering,
Spoiler.
yeah, it's not really a spoiler. That's at least what I've kind of talked to a couple guys, a couple of the mods about. So nothing finalized yet. But yeah, maybe it is a spoiler. It'll
Yeah.
probably be posted soon once we talk because we definitely want to have it solidified before the end of the split. With that being said, let's get into that game, and that's going to be Tom Kench Gamers versus Cal Poly Division 2. And this was the one I did say I felt like it was going to be the hardest for a team to win. I really felt like TK Gamers was going to pretty much dominate this series. But from what I'm seeing, it maybe wasn't a pure domination, at least not here in game one. But I'll let you kind of talk about that game one a bit here, CLT.
Yeah, I caught a little bit of this game one. The first thing that stood out was Mel and Mbessa getting drafted for the side TK Gamers. This is probably one of the few times where I actually do like Mbessa because you don't have to commit top lane to a frontline role with Skarner and Tom Kench. So you can play like a fighter class of champion. I would still argue Mbessa's might be the best worst fighter out there, but it does strike me as being like a CC star style champion. But Mel in the mid lane here against Victor, so we got the new mid laner in town against the one that's been showing up consistently throughout the whole split. So, and this game got bloody pretty quickly, actually. Um, there was a 2v2 kill in the bot lane alongside of the same, almost at the same time, like skirmishes up in the top lane. And Gyarados was everywhere trying to just keep track of this fighting. The Lilia pick is quite interesting. It's not something we see often. As our resident jungler, what is your thoughts, honestly, on Lilia?
Mm, I don't play her. Never really have. So it's really hard to give you a good, informative, and proper take. I definitely think that she's not a bad champion, but I don't think she's in a great spot in particular right now. I mean, she hasn't been for a while. I mean, she's suffered a lot of nerfs in the past just to get her to the state that she is now. Um, I don't know. I think it's a good AP jungler. I think it's got one of the best clears in the game. And I think when you consider its game playing potential, I don't think it's a bad pick. And I do think Gyarados plays it pretty well. We've seen Gyarados pull it out a couple times this split. So I don't think it's a bad pick by any means, at least from personally watching him play it. Um, as far as into Skarner, I can see it working. I mean, Skarner kind of works kind of like a juggernaut. Once his E is down, he kind of has a hard time to really get on you. Well, that's why I said kinda. He's not actually a juggernaut. He has a way to get on you, right? But it kind of feels that way. Like he has one real engaged tool, and then that's his way of getting to you. Now he's walking at you forever if he hasn't hit you with his E, because it's a really long cooldown if you didn't hit anything with it. And so he's just sitting there. Yeah, I'm coming. I'm throw Qs. And Lily's got a lot of movement speed. She can kite it out a bit. Um, So I can see like the matchup being pretty good, and her being able to match the gank speed as well, since she has such a good clear. Um, but overall, it's like it's Lilia, man. Like unless you're going that crazy tank build that people used to do back in the day, I don't know. She's just kind of squishy. She just gets popped if she gets touched once.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thematic to have a jungler that you're almost in you want people to run into you to where I feel like there's mid laners that do it better. Like
Mm-hmm.
you're more scared to run into Mel, Victor, Syndra, um, even going down the line of like Asol and Ivia, those type of champions. So, it it is interesting. I do think she can stand her ground into Skarner. And actually, I don't think she was picked in a like necessarily the worst spot here when you think you have Skarner and Mbessa coming at you. But um, yeah, it's just something I don't see that often. Kind of wanted your take on that. So
Yep.
um,
No, of course. I do want to say like it's Skarner versus Victor in a game. I feel like we haven't seen that at all this split. But I talked about this on the stats episode, right, on our power rankings. I don't think Victor should be seeing as much play anymore, because he's generally. I think this current meta is more of a mid game centric meta, and he's more of a scaling late game champion. Not saying he doesn't have a decent mid game. That's not like true. Um, what I will say though is I do think Victor and Amel should not be a bad matchup for Victor at all. So I'm not surprised early on in this game he's 2-0. You know, he's having like a pretty decent start to the game. Um, but unfortunately, I mean, there are tools to get on him. I do think Skarner is actually not a bad champion to play into the Victor. Um, and then of course you've got the TK and Mbessa, which have really good dive potential into him. So I think they drafted a pretty good comp to like say come like your Victor pick doesn't matter as well as your MF pick. Um, whereas you know Cal Poly they drafted this very like front to backy type comp, which could work, but the issue is it's also based around a bit of like MF click R on top of Leona R, and I almost feel like you don't really want that. I feel like maybe the MF could have been traded out for something better. Still maybe keep the Leona. I think Leona's fine. I think it's good into Tom Kench. Not bad in the Sivir as well. Just something else, something that can be a little more front to backy DPS heavy, because MF is not super known for that. I'm trying to think of like an AD carry champion, like maybe a Jinx.
I was thinking Jinx. Yeah.
Yeah, and you just play Kite more than you play Engage with that Leona pick, I think. Um, and I think it would have worked great. I mean, her CCs are up so often. Her Q and E,
hmm
pretty low CDs, especially as you get to that mid game. So there was
I
certainly
actually don't think.
potential.
Yeah, I don't think Ash wouldn't have been like the worst pick either here.
Yeah, I think Ash is not bad, but I think you need the damage to be killing this Tom Kench and Skarner. And as much as I feel like Victor, in theory, it should be that answer with the Lilia. I feel like if you're going a pretty low damage AD carry, um, they can just smash their keyboards and spam freaking magic resist, and HP, and be fine. So I think again the Jinx is still better because she provides a better
Yeah, yeah, I agree.
late game
Yeah.
insurance on the damage. And if you're gonna commit to the late game, you might as well just full send the late game. I mean that's just my opinion at this point.
Mhm.
Because in a team setting and like actual competitive, you don't actually need to have an early game or a mid game champion. And what I mean by that is like don't ignore those roles and say don't pick something there. But it's just not like you need to like win mid game. You already know what you're going for. You're going for the 30+ minute mark. So your goal is just to make sure you can survive that. So maybe you're drafting like that early game champion that can defend your picks, like a jungler like Lee Sin, just to be there to be able to fight the jungler early or something, for example, to keep them out of your lanes, or even just to like gank to get the pressure off, and how good Lee Sin is at being impactful in lanes. That's just why I brought him up. So yeah, I don't know. I think you just commit to the late game there,
Yeah.
personally. But yeah, I mean, from what I'm seeing in the game, it definitely looks bloody, pretty back and forth. Um, so far the Mel, to me, from what I've seen of it personally, hasn't been extraordinary. When picked in the right spots, really really well. I think here in this game, Doesn't look like he was picked in the greatest spot, but it did fine. So I'd argue the Mel doesn't win here because Mel is busted. More that Mel wins here because of
Garner's busted.
Skarner Sivir being in the video game. To be honest,
Yeah.
that's my take. I also think Mbessa here was a good angle. I think you brought that up too. Even though she was kind of getting her butt whooped, I don't think she's bad in the Mundo. So
Yeah. Yeah. The more I've watched Mel, and actually this game kind of plays towards what I thought of Mel, is she's definitely great into like as a secondary source of damage, but I think Mel plus Sivir is actually such a humongously good damage profile, and they cover each other quite well. We see like the Mel reflect does means that Sivir doesn't exactly have to burn a spell shield in like certain wombo situations. Like I think we've seen one here. I'm gonna try to get the timestamp as I'm talking, but Misfortune ult gets reflected back to her and does like half her health and damage. And that way Sivir doesn't have to like waste a spell shield or anything like that. Like it's just it's an interesting dynamic that like they're both pseudo damage over time champions, but they do have some like burst elements to them.
yeah,
So they're two champions that can really pick and choose how they want to play the fight or how they want to commit to like damage profiles.
100%.
So I do, and that coupled with Skarner and Tom Kench is actually pretty good team comp overall, drafted by the TK side.
Yeah. So yeah, so I think Cal Poly, they put up a good fight here in game one. I'm again, I don't know what they were lacking for the split, but I do think that they are a good unit, and I would love to see them back personally. Um,
Mhm.
they were in a pretty stacked Group C as far as the top half of that group. Uh, so I definitely would like to see them back, and I think they got a pretty hard draw here when you get into play against TK Gamers. Um, Over maybe a slightly easier round one matchup. Now, don't get me wrong, you got to beat what's in front of you, but sometimes more time to cook matters. Um,
Mhm.
and maybe they could have just used like one more week, and then maybe we see Cal Poly unleashed or something. But I definitely think this team has a lot of potential. Um, but unfortunately, this game one was not enough for their favor. I'm actually trying to find out where the game like exactly ends.
It kind of gets blown open in the team fight, which unironically was the interaction I was looking for at like the 27-10 mark,
Yeah,
where they caught Cop
Mundo,
Poly out in the
yeah,
jungle.
Mundo and Lilia both, huh?
Yeah, yeah, but then Mel things against Misfortune are it's quite comical.
Yeah, I saw the
Um,
uh, I saw the Mel interaction with the Leona E. That was pretty hilarious.
that one, yeah. I'm I've actually played Mel into Silas, and it's something very similar where like Silas E's you, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna deflect this. Wait, I just went to him. Shit.
Yeah, yeah. I think
So
I think there's definitely some interactions you don't want to have happen if you are the Mel. I think we've talked a little bit about Nautilus, right? Like,
yeah,
don't reflect that because now you're just killing yourself.
yeah,
um, but it's like weird because you also like if you're gonna get hit by like what do you do then in that circumstance? You know what I mean?
yeah.
I honestly think the best scenario for you is get hit and then try to spam your W after that and try to negate some of the damage that's coming in. That's probably the best scenario for you.
Hmm.
You definitely do not want to hook yourself into the team though. That is not the angle. So, but yeah,
No,
I
look,
mean, Skarner once again gets unleashed, gets a win. Are we not surprised? No, we are not. I think next week he will continue to get bans. I gotta guess he's gonna get some nerfs soon. It has to happen. Um,
I would I think by semifinals and finals he gets a nerf because in the major region pro plays he's absolutely 100% pick ban, and actually in three different leagues he's 100% banned
yeah,
through like 3 weeks of play.
yeah. I guess champion is broken. I guess as a jungler, from my perspective, I've beaten it many times. I don't think it's broken in my perspective, but uh, I guess there's maybe it just is. Maybe it just is. It's not been my perspective, but um, my answers into it feel fine when I personally played into it. But it's not about you. It's about team. So And overall as a team, like it's hard to play into because it has uh, so much ways to get angles. It's like playing against Rek'Sai back in the day when people didn't understand how to deal with her burrowing over walls and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Well,
game two. What kind of happened in game two? Do you CLT?
I I unfortunately have not caught too much of this game. I do see that already by like the 8 minute mark, this is definitely a much slower paced game than last game, which isn't saying much because last game had a boatload of kills. But we see kind of what you brought up a little bit with the Victor and the Mel. I think it's shows that Cal Poly wasn't too worried about the Mel, and I think had answers to it. Um, that is refreshing to see. Also, we see Gyarados pulling out one of his kind of pocket picks in this Udyr. Uh, I know him and Darkhound kind of are the only two that share this Udyr. I think Udyr is kind of slept on a little bit because this champion just seems to have so many ways of just tanking damage in the early game, and then he does a boatload of damage too. That he just has this like bruiser fightery type of snowballiness to him. That is it can be very underrated if you haven't played against him.
Yeah. I also
What
like to point out that I think Gwen might be getting like some more play personally. I think she looks better than she did last season. I keep forgetting it's like we just changed seasons and it throws me off because we're in the middle of a split.
Yeah,
But yeah, so last season I think she was in a really bad spot, but I actually think now, especially with a again what I believe to be a more mid game centric meta, I think she's really strong because when you get to that 2-3 item spike on Gwen, man, she's just a dumb champion. And what I've seen from her, she looks better. Um, Especially if you don't have to worry about the scaling of the game. And don't get me wrong, Gwen's a scaler, but it's different. Like I like to remind people that there's champions that technically scale, but because of the way their kit works, they're not good in late game. Gwen was always a champion to me, even when she was really broken. Where if the game went late, she always like fell off because she just gets one shot by whatever the heck she sees in the game, and just disappears, right? But when it comes to skirmishes and it comes to 1v1, she's one of the best champions. And a lot of your mid game, around like the 15 to 20 minute mark, your early mid game is about skirmishes and are certainly going to be you in a side lane. So she's going to have great success there. Um, so that's something I think about Gwen and seeing her have get a win finally. Or actually a couple wins. I think she might have won another game, but nonetheless, like she's getting some presence here, with some victories. I think is showing you that she's definitely a better champion, now than she was last season.
yeah, I would agree, and I think this spot specifically, Gwen looks really good into like triple melee, but they're not the most like locked down type of melee champions. I mean, yeah, there's targeted CC from Renekton and Udyr, but she can just input buffer her Q in the middle of this very small stuns and still get health back. I really actually like the Riftmaker first that CC Star went in this game, and I know he's been kind of one to not be afraid to bust out this Gwen top. So there's just not very many answers into her that aren't just like super creative.
Yeah, I think champions that are really good into Gwen as far as lane would be stuff like Poppy. I think Poppy's really underrated and good into her.
Yeah,
Um,
anything
uh,
that can punish like her lack of tank stats.
yeah. I'm trying to think what else. I think stuff like, and this is gonna be a funny take, but I don't think it's funny actually. I think Jax is good into her personally, from what I've seen. Um,
Yeah,
the snip snips do count as autos, so he can cancel some of that. And then like and then not Gwen, but Camille. I don't think Camille's bad either. But
that is a matchup I've not seen, so I can't speak on that one.
but
Where's Dippy when you need him?
yeah, for real, right? Um, yeah, maybe some cheesy strats certainly can work. But yeah,
Yeah,
definitely a slower paced game. I mean, these teams, everybody knows the way, right? You start to feel it more and more as the year progresses, regardless of either team that won a game or didn't, right? So yeah, TK gamers are like, all right, we won game one, it was a little close, and you can see they're like, hey, let's not blow this. Let's not be, um, Let's not be ghosts from the previous day when they went up 1-0, right? Let's close this out. Let's get this win so we can, move on and focus on our next series. Um, let's not throw our advantage that we've gained ourselves. And that's hard to do. And then on the flip side, you're Cal Poly. You're feeling that. You're like, all right, we lost a close game. This is it. This is our season right here. And the pressure gets to you. And so when that starts happening, you'll start to make um, just very slower mindseted plays. You're not like trying to force anything. And sometimes that's good, but sometimes it's also bad. Because sometimes playing your game and just being who you are and just sending it is the answer in some circumstances. Um, slowly bleeding out will never be the full answer, and I think we've seen that from really any sport, not just League of Legends. Uh, and we've seen it at the highest stage of League of Legends specifically. I know the famous Faker Shockwave will find it all. Like that game, they were down like 10K or something or 12K or whatever it was. They had no business winning that game, but they said, "Screw it, let's make this play," right? And
Hmm.
sometimes you just have to trust yourself because win or lose does not matter. What matters is that you try. So, um, but yeah, that's I think a lot of reason why in the early game you're seeing these teams play very, very, very calculated and slow.
Yep. So, yeah, looking at the 23-minute mark, looks like after this autocon, it started to really break open for TK here.
Yeah,
So,
I
looks
might.
like they used the revives pretty quickly, or pretty effectively.
Oh yeah, we're gonna talk about the revives here, and I think in the next in the next game or
Mm.
series because that was some funny stuff. But we'll save that for then. Yeah, I'm just kind of watching it over right now. This Otacon fight. Otacon. I've talked about this a lot, man. He is so tanky early. You taking him at 20 minutes is kind of like taking Baron at 20 minutes back in the day. You don't want to force it. If it's free, it's free. But if they've got all their members on the map, I don't think you want to go and just tank it for free. Because if they're able to respond and they send people, you're low from the previous fight. It's not going to bode well for your team. And it was actually a really well executed steal there by Poke Archer. He jumps in, locks people down with the Cataclysm, hops right back out, gets his smite off, secures the objective, and then they just start kind of like saying, "All right, here we come. We're gonna chase you down now. Good luck living."
Yeah. Yep. Well, looks like at least a pretty solid fight put up by Cal Poly. So I'm glad to, yeah. I know the results didn't go their way, but they look like they played pretty well overall. Uh, just TK just outmatched them just a little bit here. So,
Yeah, definitely.
but
So we
yeah.
can we can move into the final series of the week. Um, that one being Load the Cannons versus the Backdoor Bandits. Um, I know that we had a lot of fun casting this these games.
Hmm.
They were pretty back and forth, but I'll let you kind of lead us off and kind of tell everybody what happened here in game one.
So game one, this one I can speak into pretty good detail as we both casted this one. The draft, we already started to see some interesting things here. Uh, Backdoor Bandits end up blue siding B1 the Mel, and Load the Cannons immediately, I think, expected it because the stuff that they picked makes a lot of sense into Mel. You had stuff like the Vi, Aurora, the Rel come out, stuff you can't really reflect, and there's enough lockdown in there that Mel's going to get blown up. Backdoor Bandits then doubled down with, if you're going to engage into us, we're just going to try to engage into you first with the Hecarim, the Nautilus. Um, but things got really, really spicy here in the R5 pick here. Reload the cannons with Poppy showing, by the way. Rurika just decides to slam the Mbessa, which ended up going mid. So Mbessa mid into Mel, probably something he's been kind of cooking up and thinking about, which on paper makes a lot of sense. But I think overall, Mbessa's laning phase is not the greatest into that much range initially. So Rurika did get kind of pushed around just a little bit, was a touchdown in CS, but there was a bot lane fight here. I'm trying to get the exact timestamp where Rurika ends up TPing in and gets a pretty big quadra kill to kind of set up him to side lane quite a bit into this Mel. Now I will say after the early game lead that Load the Cannons got, they started to kind of throw it a little bit is the best word I can say it. There was a couple of times where they talked about us in the interview where they just didn't communicate and kind of died one by one
Yes, the
to
classic
give
run at and int, right?
the classic run in one by one in int wasn't even a full-blown team int. I think at one point Frozen thought he had the Otacon revive buff because he he went in like I'm gonna save you, Rurika, and then ends up dying, and then Rurika dies, gives over a little bit of a shutdown as well. So they were doing quite a bit to throw this game. It's the only way I can come up with it. Um, but yeah, this fight here at 15 minutes, um, just to give you something to kind of pull up here, is the Rurika Quadra kill, which had a really nice blind Mbessa R to get that fourth kill.
Yeah, I remember getting pretty hyped when that one happened. It was really, really well played. Honestly, you know what it reminded me of a little bit? Not on the same level, but it reminded me a bit of the Huni coming in and getting
Yep.
the quadra kill in the bot lane.
Yeah.
Oh, I should have been like the
The Riven
double,
Quadra.
the triple, the quadra kill. I should have done the freak thing. It was great though. It was good.
I don't know. You're pretty hyped on it. You did a good job on that one. But yeah. Afterwards, I think once Load the Cannon started to slow this game down again and get control back, they uh they did a good job like finishing out this game very methodically. Linus had a couple of really solid ults, and overall, this Mel got picked on quite a bit. Yeah, you kind of hinted at this in the cast, and for the most part, I kind of theory crafted the same thing that Mel is not a big fan of hard engage, and
Nope.
there was a few times where it was Frozen Ace plus Rurika with minus firing some Jin ults in the background, trying to get through, and they ultimately they would kill Mel at the very beginning of team fights.
Yeah, the champion can again can serve good purposes in certain situations. I think we've seen the good and the bad of her this weekend, um, and I mean that even in games where she won. I go back to that series we just talked about. I don't think she was great in that game one um, against Cal Poly. I think it kind of struggled a bit, right? Even
Hmm.
game two, honestly, probably wasn't the best spot. I really do think Victor is kind of an answer to it. And there's going to be some other stuff that people will certainly discover, and I've got my thoughts and ideas, and we've both talked about it many times. But the biggest thing, if you want to draft around it as the enemy team when you see it, if you're picking hard engage, that Mel will struggle, without
Hmm.
a doubt. You do not want to play pick into Mel. Like, you're not looking to play Ash or Blitzcrank or, one of these champions. You're looking to play Alistar, for example, Rel, um,
By Malphite.
yeah, like anything like that. Like, because it doesn't matter if she can negate the damage off of Malphite R, for example. Like, oh, I killed W. Who cares? Now your W's down. The CC's all that matters. Now we kill you. And so that's kind of like really what it comes down to. And the fact that Mel has what I think is a pretty big game changing ulti, by the way. I think her ulti really good. If she can, kind of front to back a bit, and get that good alt off, which reminds me a bit of Karthus, it can change a fight. So I think targeting her first in fights is probably very, very good chances for you to get victories in games. Not because she's the main carry, more because of what she provides, um, in how the fights work. I also think she's actually a front to back AP carry too. I don't think she's ever a go forward. She wants to play front to back. She wants things to peel her off. So if you ask me, I'm thinking something like Enchanter supports or um, front to back type jungler picks will work really, really well with Mel.
I don't necessarily like 100% agree with the front to back because she has really no damage amplification in her kits. So like she's very gated by items and just raw AP, which means MR just kind of doubled down into her. So I've noticed that a lot of the mages that are getting played either have so many tools in their pocket that they're versatile, a la like a Hui, a Victor, stuff like that, or they have like some form of true damage to help stunt them being behind, like Syndra, Ari come to mind. And Meld doesn't really have any of that. I mean, the reflect in the later stages of the game is pretty useful, because she amplifies the damage coming back with AP a little bit, and the scaling is pretty good with levels, but uh, I don't know. I don't. I think she needed hotfix nerfed on her damage because it definitely felt like it was a little too much too early in the game. But um, I don't know. Into tanks, she just doesn't feel like she brings enough. I almost loop her into the artillery mages. Only they just have more range and even more tricks.
Hmm. Yeah, I
So,
mean, when I say front to backing doesn't simply mean that you're front to backing into a tank comp. By the way, I just mean that I think she prefers not to um, be put in a situation where she has to only play forward. That's all.
oh
Because
yeah, she definitely is pretty good at standing your ground.
yeah,
And you
she
don't want to like int into her,
I would
basically.
actually, and it actually the best way to explain her I think would be a control mage, because I think control mages are a good example of they can kind of do both, where you can kind of go forward and back, and that's why I think front to back is a good term that I use there. Um, but she definitely again like it's really based around the comp you draft around her and how the enemy team drafts around her. And if they have hard engage, like she'll just always struggle as a champion, in my personal opinion. Um,
Yeah, yeah,
so
for sure. I
unless
mean,
unless
Rurika
you're
didn't even.
unless you're defending
Sorry.
her, right? Unless you're that's what that was my point about the front to back. Maybe you have someone
Yeah,
that can keep her safe. So
yeah, for sure. But yeah, no, this game was probably one of the more entertaining games overall. There was a big Baron fight that went the way of Load the Cannons there at about the 28 and a half minute mark, where P-Dog had a really solid uh, Aurora ult,
yeah,
and it just snowballed from there.
it was
So I do like
super
I
well
do
set
like
up.
the huh?
I said it was super well set up. I thought like
Yeah.
when I was first watching, I was like, this kind of seems like you guys are debating yourselves, but then they kind of played it well and set up the bait, and were able to get a couple kills.
Yeah. I think when they noticed that there was no SCYX and that she was probably going to be on the dragon, they just pulled that trigger pretty effortlessly. And Strawberry's Rel, can have some of the best engages I think I've ever seen.
Yeah,
So,
he wasn't even there for that initial play, and he came in just to help finish off the heck room. So,
yeah.
but yeah, it was really well played game by Lil Cannons here, considering um, how sloppy it got at the mid game. But they kind of brought
Yeah.
it back. But game two, that was different. I will say like Lil Cannons, they locked in for game two, and
hmm
I think in comparison they definitely took care of business. So, what is your kind of takes on game two here, CLT?
Game two, again, a lot of interesting things when it comes to the draft here. We did see Backdoor Bandits B1 the Garen, which, is kind of insane to actually say you B1 Garen. But we know Backdoor's mid laner wants to play it, and Load the Cannon's R3'd Vayne, which was was not hard to spot where this Vayne was most likely going. It was going in Rurika's hands. I mean, he did play Callista top in one game. This split, so I thought Load the Cannons had a really solid draft, to kind of counter what Backdoor wanted to do here. Empress brought out the Talia, which he looked pretty comfortable on. P-Dog had the Cho'Gath, which Cho'Gath is, one of the few tank options that can go mid and start and stand his ground into there. But yeah, this game was a little more methodical. Like it was definitely a little slower paced, but the draft advantages that Load Cannons had, I think, ended up working pretty well. P-Dog got pretty beefy and pretty tanky on this Cho'Gath and his ults. I think he ulted somebody for like half their health bar in the late game here. He got so far ahead.
Yeah, he was pretty scary on the Shogun for sure. I
Yeah.
thought Frozen. I mean, I brought him up when we talked about the we're talking in the interview with him and the rest of the team. I thought he played great as well. Had one of his best performances of the split when it mattered most. And I brought it up tons in predictions, like what a version are we going to get, and if we get the even just a slightly better version of what we've seen from Frozen, that might just be enough to like be the more complete team that Lil Cannons can be. And yeah, that's what we got, and that's what we saw um, throughout the game. I think Arctic. I didn't really bring him up, but he did come to sub in top lane for Backdoor Bandits, given their circumstances. Um, one can only know what could have happened if their original top laner was here. I think Arctic did a valiant effort playing for them here, but unfortunately, just no matter what really Backdoor Bandits did, they just they weren't the team that they were at the start of the split. Um, and though the Cannons exploited that, and they remembered how they lost the first time, and they came back with that revenge and were able to pick up a nice series win here and move on to the quarterfinals. Um, but yeah, was there anything else in particular you felt about this game or this series, CLT? Hello, are you there, CLT? Did I lose you?
Sorry. Yeah, no, I think both these teams kind of came into this playoffs and had maintained the momentum that they finished the regular season with. Load the Cannons had a really good ending to the regular season, and Backdoor Bandits was kind of struggling, and the series really kind of showcased both sides of that. So all in all, I think this Load the Cannon team is spiking at the right time, and they look pretty dangerous right now.
Yeah, they do. And considering they're coming in as technically an 11th seed, it's a really big victory. And the only upset of the weekend. No, no, actually, no, it wasn't technically. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I forgot. We did have PB&J. That's an upset too. But yeah, so those are the two upsets though. And it was funny. That's how we started was with an upset. How we ended was with an upset. So,
Yep.
um, so yeah. And if you want to get technical, technically speaking, PB&J is the 13th seed. If you want to get really technical here, so 13 seed and the 12 and the 11 seed, not the 12, but 13 and the 11 won this weekend. Um, so yeah, it was a fun wildcard weekend. And I'm looking forward to what quarters is going to provide for sure.
Mm-hmm.
With that said, I mean that's a great transition. Why don't we talk a little bit about what our predictions are for those next four games of playoffs? And we can
Yeah.
we can start off with coin flip versus PB&J. Um, so you want to kind of give your take and opinion and what you think of this series?
Uh, this series, I think Coin Flip is an absolute like insane team. Were the only ones that have a perfect season, 5-0, 10-0. No series went to 3 games. They're super creative with a lot of their picks, and the picks that they gravitate towards are also stuff that nobody plays. Things to note is like Brandino's Shen, and then we've all, seen Geo Prowl pull out some really weird and wacky support picks, but he pulls them out in, I would argue, like some of the best spots. If you're showing Leona and you see Urgot, there's a chance that Urgot's going to go support because, good luck Leona, trying to E into an Urgot lane. So I think they cook, but they cook the right way. That it's effective, it's useful, and they know the ins and outs of what they're bringing out. They're not like first timing anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's going to be really difficult for PB&J to prepare for. That PB&J is a very good, like, methodical team. They play well around each other, and they play the champs that they gravitate towards very well. But this coin flip team is They're undefeated for a reason.
Yeah.
So I would give the edge to the coin flip in this, but if there is a X factor, I think coming into this is Darkhound for PB&J. I think Aristotle for coin flip has had a really solid season in the jungle here, but Darkhound just finds angles of engage and plays these lockdown champions like a Volley Bear, like a Namumu so well, and his team supports him really well. It kind of reminds me of Flame Dog
Hmm.
from Insane Banana a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see
So
that. I definitely agree with what you're saying in terms of coin flips playstyle. I think, and it's funny as I'm about to say. I think coin flip is literally a coin flip away from losing a series in the sense that they are so aggressive, right? They remind me a lot of like LPL teams. They're gonna hit you and they're gonna hit you hard every time. But if you can just like stand back, take the hits, but don't get knocked down completely. Don't get knocked out. You know, if you want to get knocked down once or twice here, whatever. But if you could just take the hits and keep standing up and moving forward, you can weather the storm and you could definitely beat this team. Um, but even with that said, like even when they've played standard, they still look like a pretty good unit. But I think where you do want to exploit them is to try to push them into the standard play style, and then once they're in that standard play style, try to play something that maybe even falls along the line of a bit of a scaling comp. To be honest, even if this is a mid game meta, because I think where they'll end up screwing themselves at the end is if they go to those late, very very late games, because then they might trying to force stuff like they normally would, but now it's not the same. You know, you can force stuff early and sometimes get away with it, but in late game when those team fights come and you make a mistake in a forcing, game can end in an instant, right? So that's how I'd kind of look at it if you're trying to play into them. As far as pulling that off, that's a whole different shebang. Good luck. You can try what you want. Um, I think PB&J has that style to maybe be able to do that. Whether or not they can is a whole different conversation. But PB&J is battle hardened. They are battle tested. They come from the group of death. They played against four other great teams in my opinion. Um, and so when it comes down to it, if there is a team where right now that could certainly upset somebody going into this weekend, it's got to be PB&J for sure. Like they've got what I mean by that is they've got that like something about them. They're not even supposed to be here. They just got this swag now about them, man. So I would be if I were coin flip, I'd be on my P's and Q's for this for sure. Um, cross your T's, dot your I's, man. Um, with all that being said, though, where do you would you take coin flip? How do you kind of feel like is there
I
uh
think I think this is 2-0 coin flip.
2-0 coin flip? Okay, that's what I was gonna ask you. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say this. I think because PB&J has not gone 2-0 all split except when they were the ones 2-0ing somebody. I'm saying this is going to three once again, and I'm gonna say coin flip does win in the end. But I'm going to call this my 60-40. I do think that there is a chance that PB&J can certainly win this series. So this is going to be a lot closer than people probably think it should be. And I think it's going to be a really fun series. Now, flipping over to the next one here, we've got ourselves TK Benchers versus Scorch. How you feel about this one, CLT?
Uh, this is a rematch of a tiebreaker. And I actually, when I interviewed Scorch after their win, they're super excited for this matchup. I think they were just a fight or two away from knocking off TK Benchers, and they held up and beat their sister team actually in TK Gamers as well. So I think as much as I talked about Load the Cannons spiking at the right time and playing their best game, I think Scorch right now is found their groove and they're doing a lot of really really good things in the game so far. Bananasaur has been stepping up and he's been showing up in a lot of these games. He had a pop-off performance on Mel, which I think is actually crucial that he could show that he plays it. And I think he's one of the ones that has the best play style to pick up Mel in the sense of like he loves those artillery mages and stuff like that. So I think that is very threatening. Ares in the top lane, not not really gravitating towards tanks, but finding a way to make it work is going to be also interesting. I think the biggest matchup here will be Rusty Crow versus Chengi,
Hmm.
because Chengi has had an absolute standout performance in the jungle. His Lee Sin is no joke, uh, and some of the other jungle picks like Evelyn could come into play as well. But Rusty just finds a way to just keep his team in games, whether it be stealing objectives, finding great picks, or overall just playing really, really solid game of League of Legends.
Yeah.
So I think this is a much closer than people think it should be. I do give a very, very small edge to TK Benchers, but I think no matter what, this series goes to 3 games.
Okay. All right. All right. So you're giving it to TK. I agree with a lot of what you're saying. When they first played each other, it was definitely a much closer game than TK probably would have wanted, and that just shows the resilience of Scorch. I do agree that Scorch versus or Scorch, listen to me, that Rusty versus I'm saying the team name again, but Rusty versus Chengi will be a fun matchup to actually like get a full series of. I
Mhm.
also want to point out that I think the bot lanes are going to be the biggest factor here, to be honest, because on paper, Victor Apple and um, Strawberry Tea down in the bot lane are really, really, really solid. Probably one of the, honestly, I'd go probably close to one of the best bot lanes in the game right now in our league. They're really, really good together. But Boonstra and Calico have been playing together a very, very long time, and Calico doesn't always get the flowers, um, you know, with the play. But I do think that with Boonstra and how Boonstra's upgraded as a player, I do think he's gotten extremely better over the last 2 splits. I think that's where it's going to matter. And if Boonstra and Calico are popping off in this series, then I think they have a really good chance of winning this series. And so I'm going to make a take, and we're going to differ this week. I am taking
Oh,
Scorch over TK Benchers in 3, and I'm going to call this a 51-49, similar to the Ghost PB&J series. I think it's 51-49, but I do think Scorch wins it in 3.
I'm with you on the 51-49. I think just overall eye test, I think TK has just a touch more impressiveness to them coming out of Group C. But I will tell you, even though I picked TK, I am rooting for my fellow Group A compatriots in Scorch. Um, they are some of the nicest people in the world, but I think you're correct, especially in the bot lane, because you remember one thing you didn't touch on is Boonstra has like such a massive and creative champion pool
Yeah,
that it's going to be really hard to predict where stuff goes in draft, but also like TK Benchers has a little bit of that too. You know, Victor Apple's busted out some random stuff like Iron support
yeah,
that is going to be interesting. But no, I think if you look at this role for role, like player versus player, this is a lot closer than it is on paper.
yeah. I should also point out too, and this is the other reason I'm taking Scorch. They're undefeated with Bananasaur. Their former
They are.
competitor Tom, who may or may not be coming back. I don't know if he's coming back this split. Maybe he'll come back next. If he doesn't, man, Tom's been great to have you in the league. I understand everyone's got lives, so I'm not trying to go into any details on that. I just know that there's a chance it might not happen. We don't know. No one can confirm anything. Um, but yeah, we'll see. Um, but I am looking forward to this, and again, you're undefeated with Bananasaur, man. That's all I gotta say. So
Hmm.
we'll see what happens. All right, we'll see who's correct this weekend. CLT. But let's get into the next one here. We have the 2 versus the 7, and that's gonna be TK Gamers versus Instinct CK. And we all know how Instinct CK has been on my butt all split about being up in those power rankings. Maybe they care about the power rankings a little too much. I don't know. But what's your take here on Instinct versus TK Gamers?
I'm super excited to see this series. I mean, I'm excited to see all the series, don't get me wrong. But this one, there's going to be a lot of fighting in this series, I feel like. Uh,
Yes.
Instinct, top to bottom, has had a really solid split. Arctic and Good Boy have had just insane pop-off games. here. So I think the solo laners for Instinct can actually like put some work in on TK gamers. Uh, CC Star and uh, I forget the mid laner for
Stand by,
TK.
stand by.
Standby. Like they're very talented players as well. Don't get me wrong. But this is probably like one of the rare times where like the solo lane for solo lane, they're going to be challenged and challenged quite heavily. I think a lot of this matchup's going to go based on the bot lane because Bori, we've seen it time and time again. This guy just clutches up in playoffs. Won the split last season with a lot of really quality pop-off games, and he has a couple of pocket picks that he hasn't had the chance to showcase. Like people have banned out his Neela because at one point in time he was like top 100 on the server for it, and this is going to be probably one of the more like skill expressive hands check type of games or series that we've had this split so far. I couldn't even tell you which way I want to go with this one.
Hmm. Well,
But what's your thoughts on this one?
okay. Well, I think for this one, I'm actually gonna break down role for role for a second. So
Okay, I'm here for
we'll
this.
start the top lane. I actually think the top lane advantage goes to Instinct. I think Arctic is, and this is no disrespect to CC Star. I just think Arctic's disgusting as a player. He's just so good. Like I just
Yep.
do think that he can get beaten. It's not even like that. But I think CC Star's pool is nothing like to like be overly scared of. And I'm not disrespecting you, CC Star. I just honestly like you could pull Yorick out, man. I wouldn't even be scared of that crap. Yorick's a good champion. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not. It's just not it. Whereas like anytime this guy plays a champion, Arctic plays a champion, I'm thinking like, oh, it's just Ornn, and then I see him do the most crack things on Ornn. I'm like, what is this, man? And it's not just Ornn he does it on. So he can
Poppy.
Poppy, right? I mean, he can do it on multiple champions. The dude's really, really good. That's all I gotta say. I wouldn't be surprised if he gets some like target bans in this series. Um, I'm not putting down CC Star. Listen, if CC Star gets Yorick and they ban out some champions and give him a good Yorick matchup, for example, like if he finally gets it, the man can run it down and destroy your base. I'm not. That is nothing to gawk at and be afraid of, or not to be afraid of. I guess is what I'm saying. It's just one of those things where like in lane 1v1 man. I don't know. This dude's just this Arctic guy is something. As far as jungle goes, it's gonna be what Poke Archer versus Avo. I'm gonna give it to Poke Archer, slightly. I think Poke Archer, number one, he's a champion. Number two, he showcased that he has a very unique pool. It's not just stuck with the Sejuani. Um, with that said, if he does go to Sejuani duty, the man is a god on Sejuani, so I wouldn't even worry about it. Even though Sejuani's not been great this split, Poke Archer and Sejuani, I do trust. So I'd give it there. Mid lane, Standby versus Good Boy. This one is very interesting to me. I think Standby might be the slightly better player, but I'm actually going to just say this is a wash in the mid lane. I think both of these guys are just really, really good, talented players. So it's really going to come down to champion picks. That's honestly what I think of mid lane. It's going to come down to champion picks. So I'd give that a straight wash. Then we'll jump to the bot lane. We'll start with Eclipse versus Bori. I think Eclipse is underrated. If like you're talking about AD carries, I think he's had a great split. Is he better than Bori? Honestly, I don't know. I'm gonna go again. I think it comes down to picks. Bori has shown they can play some mages. I don't think I've ever called Eclipse playing any of those in the past, and that could be the difference maker in that matchup specifically. And then lastly, we'll go to support. So it's Don, right, versus
Hmm.
Relentless. I don't think
You know
support
Don Don's
matters.
listening.
I don't think support matters, Don. I don't think it matters here. No, I generally mean it. I think what it's going to come down to is not your guys' like roles specifically, unless you both just decide to become the most insane sports on the planet and just destroy everybody. I just think that there's so many good players on both of your teams. Your jobs are your job as a support. Make sure they can do their job. You don't have to style on kids, and I haven't seen it from either of you. So unless Relentless is pulling out, I don't know, Barrier support or something weird, um, if someone's doing something like that, which I'm sure he's not doing that. I'm just saying someone's doing some weird stuff. I don't. I don't expect there to be like any crazy stuff coming from the support role. I think they're both fine and very good support players. And they buff up their AD carries well, and they play around the map really well. So for me, I just gave you the rundown, bro. This is a 50-50 all day, every day. This is a
Yeah.
50-50 down to like the core of the insides of my soul. All right, I think I'm because I know people would want to give me a pick. I'm going to pick Instinct here, and I'm going to call this an upset if Instinct wins. And here's why I'm going to call it upset, because TK Gamers have former champions on their team, man. That's why. That just won last split. Not like three
Wait.
splits ago. They just won recently. So I would say Instinct that'd be an upset in my book. So
They're the two. They're the two seed in this
I
bracket.
I do not care about seeding all the time,
Oh, Don
CLT.
Don's going to go off when he
Don
hears
Don Don
this.
Don Don can go off. That's not even a bad thing though. Like I feel like people take it such the wrong way. I'm not talking crap about Instinct at all when I say this. I think it's an upset. I think if they win, it truly is an upset, because TK Gamers, like, we've seen such good from them, and we've seen some weird things, but their good from them looks really freaking good, really really good.
Yeah,
That's all I'm
I will
saying.
say that. Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm looking forward to this matchup. All right. So I'm gonna take Instinct to win the series, and I'm gonna say it goes three. There's just no way this doesn't go three, and I think it's the most banger 3 game series ever. It's just gonna be so good. Great content.
I I think there's going to be two banger 3-game series. We'll talk about the next one here in a sec. Um, man, I think it's 51-49. I do think it goes to 3 games. Ah, Don Don's gonna flame me. It's TK Gamers.
All right, we're disagreeing again.
I
Let's
I gotta.
go.
First of all, I gotta support Group A here, and second of all, I just I think there's enough creativity from the TK Gamers side that they're gonna find some advantages in the draft here. We've seen them bust out like the randomness of like the funnel Yumi strat with Briar. We've seen them bust out like Tank Jace mid and some other stuff here. And Victor Apple in the support role, he has some unique picks that I know he's been cooking up on, and I do feel like they're going to have a slight edge in draft, and I think that's what gives them the push for me in a 3-game series. But it will be an absolute banger of a series for sure.
Yeah, I'm excited. All right. Well, we disagreed on two. Hopefully, we can keep track of that. Maybe someone put in the comments what we picked. But yeah, let's get into the last one, TLT, so we can close out this episode. That's gonna
Oh,
be Small Brain No Mechanics versus Load the Cannons. This is a rematch from week 2. Load the Cannons did get the victory the last time these two teams played. It was a 2-0. Should point out there was a sub in the jungle also for Load the Cannons, so you can look at that in multiple ways you want. But I do think Small Brains has played better as the season has progressed. So what is your take, CLT?
oh man, I this series is first of all, it's going to be a banger. I do know both of these teams a little bit. Obviously you're on Small Brain No Mechanics, and
Am I?
you know,
I didn't know that.
yeah, I know. Shocker, newsflash, right? And I've definitely talked quite a bit with Rurika and Minus a little bit this end of the season, and gotten to know the guys on Load the Cannons a little bit. This series, I'm super excited to cast because obviously you're not going to be casting it. Oh man, I don't even know where to start here. I think this is probably another 50-50 like even series. I do think that small brains can get some advantages in the top lane and in the bot lane. I feel like the duo of Mono and Fid, the fact that they've played together longer, and I honestly think that those two match up well into the Minus and Strawberry, especially Strawberry's champion pool, because not Mono Fid has a lot of unique picks like the Amumu and the Fiddlesticks that do very well into the heavy engaged style that Strawberry Milk wants to play. So I do think there's a little bit of an advantage there. I do also think that the jungle matchup if you'd have asked me this a week ago, like I think you're playing better and you've showcased a lot of that now. But man, Frozen had a really good series last week, and overall, this Load to Kenneth teams has a lot of momentum behind them.
Hmm.
They did 2-0 you guys in the split, so I know there's definitely a little sense of wanting to play this matchup again just to see how it would go. Zenmud versus Rurika is going to be lit. I respect both of these guys as mid laners, and I regard them very, very highly. Ah, man, whoever. I, I think the bot lane goes towards small brains, but then the top side of the map, I could see where Load the Cannons could get some advantages here. So, oh, man, I do think you guys draft a little bit better, but I think Load the Cannons have a lot more creative, like, picks behind the scenes as well.
Hmm.
Like Rurika busted out 0 AP champions last series,
Yeah.
and we all know he plays the Syndra, the Sylas, the Ahri, like those in-your-face champions well, and he hasn't even showcased his Yone yet.
Oh, he's played
So,
it. He's played it. He played it against us.
okay, cool.
Yeah.
So you guys know what you're in for in there. But like likewise, Zemma has kind of a really good champion pool. Well, he obviously everybody knows his Azir is absolutely insane. So I almost want to refrain from picking on this series. Please don't make me pick. Um,
No, you have to pick.
I well, I need more time then. You go.
Okay. Yeah, I think it's gonna be a great matchup. I do think we match up well across the board. Um, uh, I am looking forward to the rematch for sure. Um, both teams are on fire. I think, in my opinion, I think both have good momentum going into the series. So somebody's momentum has to get cut off, right? Um, we haven't lost since week 2, right? They haven't lost since week 4, I want to say. So we have had a longer streak. So I think our streak is probably a scarier one because it's gone on longer. But the nice thing is we're not undefeated in any ways. We've lost games in series, so I actually makes me feel better. Losing is good. Losing is very good. I think this time it's gonna go 3. I am gonna say I do think
Oh,
they're gonna
without a
push it
doubt,
to
this is
3.
three.
But I like us in 3 because we're battle tested in 3 game series. I feel good. We've had a lot of
I
them this split. A lot of them this split. More than almost any team besides PB and J. I feel really, really good about our chances there. Um,
it's
so,
hard.
so with all that being said, I'm not gonna talk matchup to matchup on this one. I'll refrain from that. But I will tell you that one of the best jungle duo mid in the freaking goddamn league, baby boy, and we're coming for you guys. Best be know that we're gonna be there. We're gonna show up, Eureka. We're gonna show up, Minus. We're gonna show up, Frozen. We're gonna show up, P Dog. We're gonna show up, Strawberry Milk. So you best be afraid because you might have beat us once. You might have knocked us down, but you only won a battle, and this is about to be a war. So be prepared. So that's my
Oh,
take. And I'm not even going to give you a percentage this time because I don't feel like that's proper here. I'm just going to say
that's
I
fair.
am taking us because I trust us. I trust my team. I love my team. I fight with my team each and every day that I step up on that rift. And I am committed to winning with these boys because that means the world to me. So I am 100% excited for the matchup. And it's going to be a great series. So you can give your pick now.
Do I have to?
Yes, you have to, CLT.
I that was there was so much there that like now I oh man, I'm excited for this now. Like that was good. I felt it. Man, oh God, this is 50-50. I don't make me pick. Uh, I will count back on one point. You're talking about how you guys are battle tested. 100% believable, but let's not downgrade the battle tested from Load the Cannons. They had the win and you're in. And
Absolutely.
then as a lower seed, knock off backdoor bandits, uh, which was a higher seed, a 2 seed in there. Granted, backdoor bandits was definitely on a little bit of a slump and was fighting some light up issues, but I mean, load the cannons is pretty battle tested as well. Ah man, you know what? I don't hate me.
Do it.
I think this is 51-49. Load the cannons in 3.
Okay. All right.
I, I
He
first
has
of
to.
all,
He wants to pick everything different from this week except for one series. So
no,
I
wait
will
a sec.
take
Well,
that.
wait a sec. This first of all, you refrain from picking this series, which rightfully so. Don't get me wrong. You're
I
not
just
going to
picked
pick
it. I
your.
picked my. I picked ourselves.
Well, because we all knew you were going to pick yourself. Come on, but no, I just.
No, but I'm not even doing that out of like. I'm not even doing that out of because of like it's my team. I'm doing that because I think we are a good freaking team. That's why.
I think both these teams are good freaking
Yeah, they're a
teams.
good team. Yeah, yeah.
Like it's not outrageous for me to say whoever wins this is probably outside of coin flip front runners to win it all. Like I
I
truly
mean,
truly believe that.
instinct, and T cameras might have something to say about that, but that's
I
fine.
I we will get into that matchup next week when the winner of this one faces the winner of Instinct TK. And
Yep.
granted, I did pick TK for that one, by the way. Like I just it's unfortunate that this high quality of a matchup, not saying the other matchups aren't high quality, but this kind of rematch storyline, you have a lot of players that have been playing in this league for quite a while, like just all wrapped up in this matchup. And there's this is probably like one of the matchups that has the most storylines to it.
Yeah.
And
There's some
honestly,
history
like I
here.
have nothing but the utmost respect for both squads. I've definitely, as been casting, gotten to talk with you and met a lot of your team guys. All of you guys have been fantastic. But man, I don't want to pick this, but if you're gonna force me, I dude, I think it's 5149 load the cannons. But then when I'm wrong and you invite me to your server, just feel free to flame me.
Oh, they already know. Don't worry. They will already
Oh,
know.
I know. Like, I know Zenma and all those guys are gonna watch this and be like, "Oh, that mother."
Yeah.
But
Well,
I'm overall excited to see the series, and I
yep.
think whoever wins has momentum going into the rest of the tournament.
Absolutely. Well, I think that's a good place to close it off at. I am super excited for this weekend, regardless of what happens, man. It's been a great split, and we have a great 4 quarters matchups for you. So tune in. Hopefully, it's kind of a similar setup where we can get most of the games on the weekend. I think that was really, really nice. But never know. Some teams might schedule during the week. So we will see. But until then, thank you for watching. Thank you, CLT, as always. But I
Pleasure.
think we're good to get out of here. So GG. We will see you guys on the Rift soon, and have a wonderful week.